Hi there. Oh, I should put my pronouns on. Do you have your pronouns on?
Hi.
Hi there. How are you?
Okay, how are you?
I'm doing just fine.
All right.
Yeah. So anything I should know?
No, so for open space committee meetings and conservation commission meetings, when I run them like this, I typically have slides to put up. And I can certainly screen share the agenda if you want, or something like that. I will also make you a host so you can screen share,
Okay.
or I'll make you a co-host.
All right.
And then that way, yeah, if you want to show, it's up to you. I'm not sure if you made a sheet of all of everyone's submissions, or if literally everybody said the same
I
thing.
didn't. I just, well, we can talk
A
about
lot
it.
of overlap.
Yeah, I did not. I saved them, but I, parsed them down as much as I could,
Right.
and to just kind of kick us off.
Yeah, I tried to keep it as high level as
I
possible
know.
for you.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, I can certainly, we can show the agenda if you want to, or it can just be the group. You can see the participants and attendees who are here. If they decide they want to participate in a public comment period, you'll be able to see them there. And then otherwise, you kind of it's Hollywood Squares,
Yep.
And it's such a small group that you don't need to mic, you don't have to shut off your mic or anything like that unless people have a noisy background. It's pretty casual, pretty easy. It does make meeting minutes pretty easy too, because you can go back and watch the recording.
Right.
So.
But you still have to have them.
The recordings, yeah, until you approve meeting minutes. Hold on.
Right.
I have Mike's phone number here. Mike, is that you? See if we can unmute you.
Hello.
Mike.
Adrian.
Hi, Mike.
Hello.
Can you hear everything okay?
I can, and I'm popping between a bunch of meetings tonight. So I'll be as attentive as I can, but there may be times when you don't hear from me.
Okay.
That's okay. Thank you.
Because of your phone number, I'm just going to leave you on, and you can mute your own phone over there. Yeah, all right. Well, hopefully everybody can get on. I should check my email and make sure everybody's able to actually do it. Oh, there's Steve. Steve has BNF at 5:30. Chris, I'm not sure if Richard is going to get on. He was able to make the open space committee meeting yesterday, so that was good.
It was good.
So Leslie, Chris, and Richard, hopefully we'll get them here. Oh, there's Richard.
There's Richard.
Hi.
Hi.
Can see you great. Can hear you.
Yeah, I've been down East Main, second time in as many days, Adrian.
I know
That's-
it's like you and Dave Sargent, Dave Sargent does open space and Concom with me.
Yeah.
It becomes old hat real fast. Where
Well,
are you?
I got another paddle in today. We had
Yeah.
to curtail it because the winds got so strong, there were suddenly 2 and 3 foot seas. So
Really?
all the kayakers, we all pretty much came in around the same time.
Oh, where are you in Maine?
We're in Cape Rozier, which is Brooksville, which is near Deer Isle and Blue Hill.
Oh, I know where that is.
Really beautiful on the edge
Yeah.
of the beach. Yeah,
What a
it's-
nice area.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
Yeah. Oh, enjoy it. It's going to be a great weekend. It's like the best time to be up there too.
It is. It's great.
Yeah.
The trees are just starting to change colors.
Yeah. It's like super foggy in the morning. I go up to the mountains almost every weekend up in northern New Hampshire. And this time of year is the best because it's still like warm during the day and nice in the afternoons, but the mornings feel so,
Wearing a top, but
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Sleep
it's
well.
not like the rugged winter weather yet, you're still holding on.
Don't want that. I did go swimming the other day, and if I'd had a hood on, I'd have been okay because my head
Oh.
really hurt from the cold. Colder than Gloucester.
I bet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
well, hopefully the others come on.
yeah, we have Mike.
Mike's here. Steve's in BNF, you said?
Steve is at BNF.
He tried to log on last night. He messaged me. He said,
Oh.
"Cindy, I can't get on."
Wrong day.
And then he said, "Oops." And I said, I
What is
hate to
BNF?
admit how often I've done that,
know.
especially if it's a week with a holiday.
Oh
I
yeah.
have no concept.
No
of
idea.
quickly,
Yeah.
Let's do in depth.
Budget and finance.
Oh, budget and finance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hold on. Where am
And I have an animal shelter fundraiser later tonight, so I'm hoping we don't go longer than the hour.
I hope not.
Yeah.
Last night went on a long time.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I know you're jumping in like about 80% of the way to the finish line on
Yeah.
that project. We had, drafting an open space plan update in a normal world is like a 12 to 18 month process and requires outside help.
Oh,
It cannot be done with in-house staff only and the committee. And so adding COVID to this has made it like a 2+ year process. It's probably going to be like pretty close to 3 years by the time we're done. So we're pretty far down the line, and it's the point where we're really starting to draft work product, and not talking about it so much anymore, but it means work, you got to really grind it out and take the time to have the conversation and take the notes and put it together. I thought it was a pretty good document that we were shaping up.
It was very interesting.
Yeah.
It was very interesting indeed. And there's so much overlap between the committee and the commission.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's why, I'm so happy that you're willing to do both. I don't think either group is going to be like a monthly meeting forever. I think eventually when we have projects and assignments, it's going to be a little bit more ad hoc. So it won't be such a huge commitment for you as a volunteer. But coming in right now and starting is so helpful, I think. And just to know, to be able to bring that back and not just me be the one kind of saying it, So,
Right.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Leslie?
Leslie.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi.
Here we go. You are muted.
Hello.
Hello.
All right. One thing.
Who's called in on the 978 number? Oh,
Mike.
That's Mike.
that's Mike. Okay.
So Cindy, if you want, we have a quorum. I can kick off the meeting with the preamble and et cetera.
Yep.
Okay. So greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Thursday, September 23rd, 2021 meeting of the Dogtown Preservation Commission. Consistent with Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. Persons who wish to do so are invited to view the meeting at the link located on the City of Gloucester website under Remote Meetings, Thursday, September 23rd, 2021, Dogtown Preservation Commission, or join by phone at any of the phone numbers provided on the agenda and the webinar ID 876-4072-1748. In the event that a live transmission proves unworkable for any reason, an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the meeting will be made available on the city's website as soon as possible. And I will begin with a roll call for memberships. Chairwoman Dunn.
Here.
Member Leahy is not here yet. Member Nicholson.
Present.
And Member Quaitman.
Present.
Mike Hale is here representing the DPW, and I'm Adrienne Lennon, the conservation agent representing conservation. Over to you, Cindy.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order at 5:35. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes of August 26, 2021?
Yes.
Yes.
Could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes. So moved.
And how about a second?
Can I second them as the writer?
Okay. I'm going to go by roll call vote. Adrian,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
All right. Minutes are approved. The Dogtown Preservation Fund update. I just wanted to let you know that I did. Oh, Chris is here. Yay, Chris.
Yep. For the record, Chris Leahy has joined the meeting.
I have reached out to the mayor's office and I did a quick memo over there to just move that along in the process so we can appear before BNF and get the funds that the DAC raised over to the Dogtown Preservation Commission. So as soon as I hear back from that, I'll report back to the group. Dogtown map sales, I did hear back from Rudina and she gave me a small list, which I passed on to you. I think that we could probably add a few folks to that list. I also, maybe by the time we meet again, we'll be looking for somebody to take that on. It would be a matter of reaching out to the vendors, see what their supplies are when they need new vendors, and of course, when they want to pay us for the maps type thing. So be thinking about that. Any comments or anything on that? And if anybody has any thoughts on additional vendors, maybe send me an email. I was thinking Maritime Gloucester might be a good, the gift shop there might be a good entity to have the maps.
Cindy, may
Yeah.
I make a comment?
Sure.
I think it's the case that people under 40, many people under 50, 60, and 70 are no longer using paper maps, but using All Trails and other apps that provide very complete information on the trails in Dogtown. So I wonder if the commission wants to take a look at other kinds of potential merch that we can offer to the public in order to keep a little slush fund going. I think maps are going out of style.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think people use traditional maps anymore. I don't know if you have this one though. It's more like an informational booklet. It has
I do have
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think people just sort of think that it's kind of neat to have. It's got a lot of information in it and stuff, but yeah, as far as a map, I was up in Dogtown this weekend and I use all trails myself, even when I know where I'm going. So, so yeah, we can certainly be thinking about that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Rich, anything to report on your open space appointment or lack thereof?
Well, there's still nothing official. I received an invitation join from Heidi, the chairwoman, and had been previously told by the city that the committee didn't need any more people, but it appears they do need another person. Adrian is assisting me in coordinating with the city, and hopefully I'll get an official appointment soon. I did attend last evening's meeting as sort of ex officio, I guess, and it was very interesting. There was a lot of overlap between our two groups, and it was a very good discussion on goals of the Open Space Committee and objectives and definable objectives. So it's very interesting, and will be a lot of overlap.
Good. Good. Do you think it would be helpful if I sent a letter to the mayor's office on behalf of the Dogtown Commission?
Certainly wouldn't hurt. I don't know why. Maybe Adrian, you have any more?
I'll tell you, since I started a couple of years ago, I've only seen the appointment on either, I staff 3 boards. The 3 boards that I staff, I have seen appointments, maybe 4 or 5 of them. And on average, it is a like 3 to 5 month process. So you just when we know that we're expecting you to join the board, then obviously I will always make you a panelist and include you on the circulation. And when it comes through, then you've already been oriented.
Good.
So.
If I may I make a comment?
Mm-hmm.
I did attend by Zoom the last Open Space Committee meeting. And I think it really is very important that there be collaboration and better communication between our organization, our commission, and what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, the more of you that want to come to those meetings, the better. I can tell you Open Space has, I think there are a lot of smaller focus or smaller scope advocacy groups that could benefit from viewing the world through the lens of the Open Space Committee, because the Open Space Committee, I mean, you feel like this is a large mandate for Dogtown. The Open Space Committee is really expansive.
Yeah.
And so the more likely and the higher presence I think that you have as this group in front of Open Space, the more support you're going to have for any of the efforts that you have going forward, because it's going to end up being probably a gatekeeping organization for interested open space and recreation priorities going forward. I mean, you've seen a few, we did meet yesterday, so I think you probably saw the September 8th. I'm pretty sure Chris got on to September 8th. Richard was at the last one, and we're covering a lot of material. And once we really start to kick off and get moving with the new plan, I'm really hopeful that Dogtown will drop in every here and there, or at least find their way onto the agenda to be active participants in the conversations that happen on the open space side.
Right.
But I will say, there's only so much I can do to bring information back and forth. You
Right.
have to be there too, so.
Well, I have a question about that regarding being invited as panelists. What are the rules about that? Can the DPC members be invited as panelists?
In general, it is typically only the meeting members who are panelists. And in part, that's because it's a little bit difficult to manage more than a quorum or the full membership, 7 people on the screen at a time. So, and it's difficult for the rest of the public who's not appointed to understand who is and who is not. right? So it would be sort of like sending the agenda for the open space committee out to the DPC for an in-person meeting, as opposed to posting it with the expectation that the DPC is going to find it. So like kind of requesting a special invitation, which would be sort of like a special handling. That's not, it doesn't look great in the optics of open meeting law.
I
You know what I
understand.
mean? Yeah.
So can I ask a different question? Because having a representative member, is better than nothing, but sometimes it can be somewhat ineffective. Is it an option for us to invite, a representative from the Open Space Committee to come to the DPC meeting to give us an update and to request an invitation to go to them to share what we are working on and to invite comment on how we can better collaborate?
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to access the open space committee members at your leisure, and try to commit them to your cause. They're welcome to come over here. It's just that the reflection of who exists on which committee kind of does have to continue to be discreet because you are appointed.
So
But
I understand that. I'm just asking about the rules around, can we invite a particular person, or for them to appoint a representative to come and give us formally at a DPC meeting an update?
I mean,
Wouldn't
yeah,
that be
sure.
my role?
But that
I
is
would-
pretty
I would
much
say
what we're
that
doing
would
with
be-
Richard.
Yeah.
Right, that's my
think-
role to do that. And this was my first meeting that I was at, was yesterday's. And I am on vacation up in Maine, but I will, be taking detailed notes and passing the information back and forth, both during meetings and in between meetings as appropriate, I think.
And you can also view the recordings online,
Mhm.
which is kind of
Yeah,
nice.
I think it's probably important for the first step to just get Richard appointed. So it's a more formal, and then, yes, if we can attend them, great. I meant to attend the last one, but I had another meeting I had to go to. So I would like to take some time to maybe look at some of the recordings, because I think there is a tremendous amount of overlap. But Leslie, you're absolutely right. I think it's beneficial for us to know what they're doing, and for them to know what we're doing.
Mhm.
And I, tried to explain some of that last night. Both groups being, our group being in its infancy effectively, as a formal commission, of course. And as Avery was saying, OPC has done a huge amount of work already with MAPC. So, but, even at initial glance, there is so much overlap and combined interest. And, I think one of our most important actions will be to avoid duplication of efforts. We both don't want to separately develop signage standards, for example, that don't work together, or misassign budgeting towards things that aren't helpful towards each other.
Agree. Okay, so thank you all of you who sent me your priorities. They were very detailed, and I did my best to kind of parse them out. Is that? Oh, did we lose Leslie, or just?
Oh, she's with
No.
us.
Okay, I see you now. So it seemed like, on the first one, it seemed like a lot of people sort of mentioned getting information and gathering information, creating maps, getting, what is the status of all these parcels, and actually getting that in a common area where we could find it easily. Like if I wanted to know, is the compost pile on Chapter 97 land, that I would be easily able to find something like that there'd be a place where I could go and see all the zoning, all the deeds to the self-help grants, any information that's out there that's actually factual.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Chris.
You're muted.
You're muted.
You're still muted, Chris.
There we go. How's that?
There you go. We can hear you.
Yes, I think the idea of a common source is desirable. However, there a lot of the materials have already been gathered, and I know Adrienne has been working on a map. She has tons of materials. I've been collecting things. Myself and a colleague have been putting together maps and things. And so I guess I would like, as we move forward, I assume we're going to sort of polish the wording here and that kind of thing, and perhaps sharpen it a bit, that I would like to see at the end of whatever we think the priority deliverance period is, whether it's a year or within the next 2 years or whatever, I'd like to see an actual sort of single document, and that might be in the form of a computerized map that had all of those things. This reads, and that may just be, I think we've done a tremendous job of pulling this all together, because I'm sure we all had our own takes on this, but that rather the way this reads, it's to collect reports and maps of boundaries. And I would rather see that those resources be coalesced into a concrete document. That's not to obviate the idea of a collection point where all of those things could go and be seen, a library, if you will, of Dogtown documents. But I think there should be the notion of a product embedded in this priority.
Richard?
Yeah, and that was something discussed in last night's open space committee, was the desirability of having this as a user-friendly GIS type program that anyone could access.
And I did look at some of the maps that the planning department has and stuff, and it as you get closer to sort of the boundaries, or what we think the boundaries are of Dogtown, and I include the North Woods in the Dogtown discussion, it does get a little fuzzy for me as you get to the boundaries, and I think it would be outstanding to have a map. Do you have a sense of what that would entail to actually map the boundaries and how we would get that started? I know the open space is that is something you're doing, correct?
Are you talking to me?
I'm talking to you, Chris.
Okay, well, in a way, I mean, I think Adrienne is probably one of the few people who understands the complexity of the kinds of layers that would be on such a map, because there's the ecological layer, there's the basic boundary layer, there's a whole series of categories of ownership and protected status. There's the historical map, potentially, et cetera. And I know she's working on that. It's a long-term process, and we've discussed it a little bit, but I have a pretty good idea, because I've been involved in this for a while and sort of have a sense, and in some cases, again, working with a colleague, we've actually produced some maps. And if at any point it would be useful, I'd be glad to do a presentation saying, well, here's one way of looking at this. What are we missing? What does Adrienne have that we might not have, and vice versa, et cetera. So.
Mm-hmm.
How about if I show you what I have so far, what we have kind of going on?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, hold on. So here, you may be familiar with.
This is
This
what I
is
was looking at, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the city's applied geographics GIS service. Okay, and you can actually access this through the website, although it was moved, so I'll have to tell you where it's located now. So this is, the data is brought in from Mass GIS, and then we are subscribers to this company called Applied Geographics, the GIS service, and they will bring in for us any layers that we're looking for. And then in addition to that, we can submit layers to them. Okay, and this is a citywide effort. There are many, many different users for different reasons, different departments that are interested in this product, but it is definitely very powerful for the interests of open space and Dogtown. So there's a couple of different base layer themes. This is your most recent Google Ortho flyover. It's from 2021. And yeah, I mean, the aerial map and bounds, this is the assessor's database drafted over the top of it. Okay. And, I have my standard overlays for Wetland Protection Act resource areas and riverfront areas, stream stats, things like that. And we also have water resource protection, land conservation, ACEC, all this these are wellhead areas. There's a lot in terms of regulatory review that's available. And then in addition to that, what we have been doing is taking this map specifically, I'm just going to look here, neighborhood complex and the Dogtown trails, and trying to kind of get them incorporated. And these are layers that are coming in from OpenStreetMap. This is, I think, something that we could do more with. We could definitely name these trails. We could be confirming their location or prioritizing them for use or at points of access and things like that. I'm kind of getting off track. But what I want to share with you is part of the open space plan. Hold on, let me pull up the right ward. Update has been this very, very rigorous inventory work that we have been doing. Greg and I basically went through the entire city and looked parcel by parcel at every property that does not have a structure on it. It was about 800 parcels altogether.
Wow.
And identified what was appropriate for, open space and what maybe was not. And so after having done that, we started to put together maps that express ownership, right? Because in the context of the open space plan, the concern is really what can we impact, right? There's open space that's out there that's privately held, but for the scope of the open space plan, you can collaborate and encourage partnerships, but you can't force a private landowner to protect their land, for example. And Gloucester has enough work to do in trying to figure out what it actually owns and how it owns it and what the restrictions may be on it, if they're limited or if it is permanently protected in some way by deed restriction. So we have begun to produce these layers that are reflecting ownership and then potential layers of protection. So what the plan is we're getting there. What the plan is to be able to pull that back in as a layer over here, right?
Adrian, when you have that map that you have right there, can you go over to the right and turn on the land conservation button?
Yeah. So this is not correct, right? You can see these layers come in from MassGIS. Okay, right. So the service provider they have the aerial or whatever their base map is of the city of Gloucester. The first layer is the assessor's database. Mm-hmm. And then every other layer that reflects parcel location, right? Based on their geotag ID, right? And their shape. And then every other layer is brought in from MassGIS. So this is information that's been reported to the Division of Conservation Services and recorded in their geographic records to be basically reflected on Oliver or Morris or one of the MassGIS programs. And then the service that we have basically just pulls that layer in, that shape file in, and puts it on top. So whether it's correct or not is the data that we have here that you're looking at. It's only as good as the most recent MassGIS data, which is probably at least 10 years old.
But is it not correct that what we see here, and given the limitations that you talked about, is not what those of us who are familiar with Dogtown would call Dogtown in a comprehensive sense. There are,
Correct.
you're right. I mean, there are many patches of open space here that I at least would like to think of as eventually becoming a protected area known as Dogtown Commons or whatever. And I think that I guess you could call it a visionary map, but leaving gaps for those things that we don't know would be very useful, because even me looking at this and I understanding your interpretation, it's like, wait a minute, okay, that's watershed land that so as I say, a map for what our vision for what the common sense of what people who understand Dogtown, who know Dogtown, what they think Dogtown is, I think would be useful to have, just to let people know what we're talking about.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And so that's one of the objectives of this inventory effort on the open space plan side. It's not, and it's not necessarily going to come out with the plan. It's going to come out, as Richard will tell you, as an action item of the plan. Right. And so we are going to create this data column that identifies exactly by parcel ID which parcels we really believe and feel belong to the Dogtown Commons identity. And that is then going to be, we'll send it back to MassGIS. Maybe they'll update it by 2030 or whatever. But for our own uses, because this is a subscription service, we can send our layers to them, to Applied Geographic. And so this AppGeo, the city's GIS service, will reflect that while we wait for the Commonwealth to update their own records, right? So we're making progress on that front. And that's, and then the other thing that's like really down the road, but most importantly, we have to organize our information before we get there, is, this particular tool has a whole backend cloud-based data storage feature. So this is used more by engineering and inspectional services, but it's a great place for us to think about what we can maybe do in conservation. You can add documents to a parcel lot ID. Okay, so you can, for example, you can see the property record card. So all those documents have been added. This is through the assessor's database, right? But if you had more information, deed history, historic photographs, historic information that you wanted to include, you can add documents. I can add documents. And that will be then hosted here. So any user who's signed in or who's viewing, an exterior view of 64 Revere Street and wants to see what information the city has on file for it, it's living in this GIS gateway. So that's down the road. That's where we're going.
Yep.
And that would be really state of the art,
Okay, so if that's down the road, there's got to be some interim steps or action items that we could take, Chris, don't you think?
Yeah, well, I'd like to again show off what shall I call it? A map that presumes to show some of these different layers, but starting with, and I understand this is not official, it's not coming from MassGIS, it's not coming from Adrian's office, but it attempts to say, okay, this is Dogtown as we think of it. It's not written in stone, but here it is, and here are some of the different layers that get put together, and this is why this part of, and then here are some sort of protection kind of layers. Watershed, for example, is protected. There is some conservation land, Greenbelt, owns land there, et cetera. Mass Audubon has a chunk, although that's on the Rockport side.
Yeah.
And those different things, but that give rather than the pieces that will eventually be coming together, will move kind of in the other direction. Say, here's a speculative idea of what Dogtown is, and here are some of the pieces there. Let's critique that. And then we have two different kind of ways that we're coming at that.
I'd like
Richard?
to ask a question.
Richard, Richard had his hand up and then we'll go to you. Okay, Leslie?
I was just going to say that makes total sense, because then by coming to an agreed upon quote unquote understanding of what is defined as Dogtown, that informs what our priorities, what our actions are, right? And without that, we're sort of flailing a bit, I think.
Right. Leslie?
I want to just go back to your comments, Nicole. You know, I heard you say that the Open Space Committee has looked at 800 parcels of land that are without structure, has done a tremendous amount of work to determine ownership for those as a key step in identifying opportunity for expanding protected and conserved land. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, we looked at all 13,000 parcels in the city.
Yeah.
And we got to about 800 parcels without structures. We do not know fee ownership on all of them, but
Right.
we have been doing very diligent work to identify the ones that we don't know, so we can prioritize solving that problem. But again, there were, you know, in getting really deep into this inventory, looking at 13,000 pieces of property in Gloucester, we had to stop somewhere and say, this is where we're gonna put the information in the plan and send this off to the Division of Conservation Services of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And we know we're already ahead of what is required for an open space plan. And then we're gonna add action items to everything that needs to come after that over the next 7 or 8 years. We can't keep kind of digging around in this data because it's preventing us from doing the other stuff that has to come through, right? So that was where we stopped. We said, okay, we at least can tell what our problem parcels are in ownership and fee ownership, and we at least can reflect what we definitely know and or believe we know to be of limited protection under Article 97 or Chapter 61A or B, or under permanent protection by deed restriction of conservation.
Yeah,
that's where we like it, is we're done, and you know.
Well, it strikes me as an incredibly valuable contribution and a platform that we should be as aware as possible of the value of, as we think about how we can add incremental value to all the work that's going on in town, the work that you're doing, the work that Open Space is doing. And I really want to be mindful together about how we create incremental value through this commission. I want to just offer a cautionary comment. Chris and Richard, I think there's, you know, I will just say I completely share the objective of establishing a clearer sense of the boundaries of Dogtown and of filling in the holes, not only geographic holes, but the holes in conservation and in thoughtful usage and preservation. That I think is tremendously important. I would be cautious though about trying to do an end run to draw an aspirational boundary around Dogtown at this point. I think there's some things that we could do that would structure the priorities that should decide what properties and we do and do not prioritize to incorporate. But I'd be very cautious about an aspirational boundary line, because I would expect it will stir up unnecessary controversy before we can really get going on what matters.
I don't think so, but and I certainly don't accept the idea of an end run. That's certainly not what we're up to. I see these as sort of compatible things. I think maybe, I don't know how well you know Dogtown, but I think the kind of what you're calling aspirational boundaries are not, you know, we're not gathering in, you know, people's properties and things like that. They're all categories of land that are either already protected, and as Adrian points out, there are a bunch that aren't protected and we don't even know deeds to them and that kind of thing. And that's all research that needs to be done that Adrian is doing and that kind of thing. But this is not like pie in the sky. Oh, we wish all of this could be Dogtown, when in fact a lot of it isn't considered Dogtown. I'm talking about, you know, Dogtown as a consensus area that I think most people would agree was legitimate. And if not, we can say, well, wait a minute, what about this? I mean, I agree that, you know, the best possible map would include adjacent areas of similar habitat, including, you know, Rockport, not to be, I know this is, you know, this is Gloucester Commission. So, but Rockport and, you know, adjacent areas in Gloucester that are not, they have a different name attached to them, but they're the same habitat. And I think, you know, could be considered in a different color, you know, Greater Dogtown is a phrase that's been used. So anyway.
Well, why don't we do this? I mean, I think it's important as well. And I think that all the groups have been trying to sort of accomplish this for some time, to have this map and this really accurate information. But, you know, it sounds like that's something that Open Space is doing, and perhaps while that gets developed, we can have some short-term action items too. Folks did mention, you know, getting that online sort of, you know, we talked about it a little bit at the last meeting too, you know, getting maybe from our webpage at the city, all this information on Dogtown, like, you know, the self-help grants that have been written over the years have all the list of parcels. You know, there are parcels next to those that we don't know the ownership of, and we can start on things like that while we are waiting for that map to be developed, because I do think to have a management plan of Dogtown, we sort of have to know exactly what it is.
It is, yes.
But I think there's some steps action steps we could take in the interim while that map is being developed, because although to my mind, it sounds like it should be simple. Clearly, those of you who know more than me, it's a very, you know, detailed, complicated process.
Indeed.
Anybody's thoughts?
Yeah. So I just sent everybody out Dogtown Preservation Commission invitations to the Google Drive, and you're all editors at the highest level. And I kind of just created some folders. You're welcome to store information under folders of each of your names, or store anywhere you want. And just know that I'm not going to actively manage it. It belongs to you, and I have unlimited Google data.
That's great, Adrian. That's very helpful.
Off you go. If you are going to get into the business of talking about specific properties or parcel clusters, it would be very, very helpful to me if you include in the file name the map and lot number, because everything is geotagged by that.
Yep.
And sorting information, especially as we get into higher volumes of data, according to that will really help. I do want to say, you know, I think it's really important and useful for Dogtown, this group, to focus your energy on unknown parcels of unknown ID or ownership, and gathering as much information as you can about properties that we don't have a lot of information about, especially chain of custody and things like that. And also, I think the place in the past, this is all before my time and just from my view, the place in the past where the disconnect has happened is that at the end of the day, to really act on the information that you have in such a way that the city can take holding of the properties and conserve them, it will require us to hire a title attorney to execute that transaction. There's just no amount of volunteer work that is going to replace the reality that we will need a legal representative to handle the transaction. The city needs it for their own protection. Anybody who's involved in this needs it for their own protection. It is land use. It is real property that we're talking about trying to transact on, and it's going to require some external body. And I'm not an attorney. To my knowledge, there's nobody on Open Space or Dogtown Preservation Committee that is an attorney. And in fact, I think that would be, are you an attorney? I didn't know that.
You're hired.
You're hired. Well, I think that would be a conflict.
Yes, I guess so.
I believe that comes down under conflict.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we will have to, that's, but ideally we've gathered as much information as we can, organized it in such a way that we can hand it off to the land use attorney, that hopefully I can engage in the next 6 months to a year and say, this is the information that we have. We'd really like to know the mechanisms that we can use to try to move these properties and get that going. But that's the work of the Dogtown. This group is going to be to gather and organize that information in such a way that we're not paying a ridiculous hourly rate to get it done, right? So, but that I think is the piece that didn't ever happen, right? I think that people have gathered a lot of information. There is a lot of information out there, but the engaging of a legal representative to move the properties has just been the piece that hasn't come through, and we'll try to get that done.
That's great. I think the other thing that really hasn't happened, and I've been involved in this process for a long time, is that until now, neither your office nor any citizens, so there are people like Noel Mann who have been collecting data and things in a sort of way and putting them in a filing cabinet, have never brought them together in a cohesive way. And I think that's the piece that we can really push on. And then once we know what we think we want, we get attorney in for, the least amount of salary and make it happen.
Right.
Yeah, it would be nice to have that information, that just information you can find without having to, call Noel and say, do you have that file? Whoops, excuse me. So I think it's really important because when I go searching around, like some of the information that I found, Essex Registry of Deeds, the planning website, self-help grants, DEP, to contracts, I've got the JRM contract for the compost. So, just all those different entities, to try to gather information takes me several hours before I can even begin to have, a sense of where I'm going. So
Believe me, I understand.
Yeah. So
I think this group especially understands a lot of what needs to happen for us to get to that place. And you're the holders of that information, and I have a place for you to store it. But we have to get to that place where we're doing that, because Noel has submitted a lot of material to me, and Charlie Crowley gave me a lot of stuff before, but I cannot be in the business of renaming files and reading through everything to know what they are. I'm not going to be the title attorney who does the work, right? You have to store it in a way that is, or you have to do your own clerical work is basically what it comes down to, because I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. Right. And so here you have your own file storage opportunity, and it's going to be available to you either through your email and also through the website. When you're ready for me to put it up there, I will. But just know that I can't even keep up with the Conservation Commission submissions and, keeping those files organized. There's just no way I can do historical document record keeping and archive work. It's just not enough hours for that.
Towards that end, I think it'll be very important. It's great that we have access to Google Drive, but I think it's going to be important that we have a sort of common structure that we all enter things under. Otherwise, we're not going to find anything. And it becomes useless as in a giant file cabinet.
Right. So that's something for you to think about.
I'm happy if nobody else wants to. I'm happy to take on the role of the librarian. If you want to send stuff to me, I can maybe come up with some sort of filing system. I'll run it by you, of course, first, and then maybe figure out how to organize those materials.
I mean, for me, the only thing that is most important is that I have the parcel lot ID on every single file name, and ideally whatever year it was generated. If there's like an original year of the document that's shown on the document, then
Right.
that helps me sort a lot of information.
Leslie, you have had your hand up.
Yes, thanks, Cindy. So I want to go back to clarify, if you can, Nicole, how we use the information that you've already gathered. Are we going to find your research on private owners and ownership data on the city GIS site? How do we catch up with where you are so we're not duplicating?
Well, so right now, because it's the process of building the open space plan, we have not even gotten to a final draft yet, but we have essentially decided we're going to stop with maps. We have a final set of maps that are going to be the working maps, which will be the starting point of the 7-year lifespan of the open space plan. So I can send you those maps. They will not be able to be incorporated into the city GIS service until the open space plan has been approved by the committee, approved by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and then adopted by the city council and the mayor's office, which is a lot of steps before we can actually add the overlay.
Right, but I'm going to check that I hear you correctly. We can access those maps as they are.
PDF,
and begin to work from them. We won't be able to see them through the Mass GIS vehicle, but
right.
but we'll have the work that you've done.
Yes, you can definitely get a hold of the PDFs. Yeah.
Thank you.
And view them. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Adrienne, but my sense is that if we look at, Dogtown writ large, I'm not talking about Rockport or, peripheral areas, but the general sense of Dogtown, there are not that many parcels in doubt, private parcels. There are a number. There's that whole bunch of strips there, and that's an issue, but you can work through those one by one. But outside of that, it's not like there are dozens of little inholdings that we would need to clear, in my sense.
I think you and I are thinking about this in the scope of thousands of parcels on the Great Marsh and things like that.
Right.
There aren't that many. Ownership isn't the issue at Dogtown.
Right.
And understanding ownership. It's about acquisition and protection at Dogtown. Right. We all know this. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So that's that matter.
Okay.
Yeah, done that one.
So yeah, let's move on to the second one.
Well,
Go ahead,
can I
Leslie.
make a comment?
Yes.
I think when I brought up the importance of having priorities from my perspective, we discussed that we were looking to establish goals of tasks that we could have behind us by next spring. And so as we look at priorities, I'm interested in ways that this can be concretized so that we're clear about what we're trying to get done. There has been so much gathering of information, and it could easily be a process that takes many more years. I wonder whether there's a way for us to be more clear about what we want to accomplish by next June.
I think that if you go to the trouble of indexing and organizing the information that you have in one place over the next 6 months from all of the resources, not just the 4 of you, but also who else that that has information about this, that's a great goal. That would be great if that was taken care of in 6 months. I think it will take that long. I do think that there's that much information out there. I think that many people have tried to touch this subject and have, loose leaf handwritten notes in different places that we should try to incorporate in our anthology of information. And spending 6 months just trying to do that would get us through the other side of the open space committee moving their plan forward so that it can be acted upon. And then we would be tying that each of those pieces of information to the parcel lot ID on the map layers. Right. So you would be prepared to incorporate and fold all that information in.
The other thing too, Leslie, is that, these agenda type items, we're sort of narrowing them down and discussing them, but they're going to stay on the agenda. So even though we can't say, like, I was thinking the parcels that, we have to protect, that I don't think that it would take that long to identify those, but the library may take a long time. But I think that, at our next meeting, we can even be setting goals with timeframes on them. But for tonight's meeting, we have sort of these three topics that I sort of pulled out of everybody's things that I think we're just trying to even maybe narrow down further, or just kind of discussing. I didn't envision that tonight we could have a time frame of when we would accomplish these things, but we will get to that point.
I agree with Leslie that the idea that we do agree that there should be a time frame, a reasonable time frame, and that 6 months would be good, but we have to tailor the time frame with the practicality of what we're trying to accomplish. So yeah, no, we don't want it just to be open-ended, but I think one of the frustrations over the years has just been that nothing ever happens, kind of a thing. And so what happens, we're certainly not going to protect Dogtown writ large in 6 months, but we might well have a plan and a map or something, and a library in that period, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That'll be pretty good.
So
Lot.
the next topic that people mentioned was stewardship and collaboration, is what I called it. Is folks brought up the fire roads, ecological significance, the rare plants, cultural features and recreation, and then working with other groups within the city and outside, nonprofits and stuff, to explore either hiring a forestry person or how we can work together so we don't duplicate work, but that we get the work done.
Comments? You want looking for comments?
Sure.
Okay, so my comments basically just have to essentially to do with wording. The way 2A is worded, it says that basically we're going to be managing emergency exit roads and trails for all those good things. And my sense is what we would hope to do to have be managing Dogtown, or managing the Dogtown landscape or something, including access to roads and trails, the ecological, areas of ecological significance, rare biota, rare plants and animals, cultural features and recreation. So that's just kind of a tweak there as far as that goes. And the only other thing I would really tweak is that I think to be the idea of coalitions, because we have a lot of people out there who no doubt Dogtown have already been working with Dogtown and that kind of thing, is that I'm not sure the person that we might be looking to hire would be a forestry person. I think it's someone who has a background in ecological management, probably property management that would include, ecological management, as well as, more things like safety and roads and trails and recreation and those kinds of things. So otherwise, I think you've done a great job of putting all our thoughts together.
Well, I did get an email, ironically, from Nick, and I, Chris, maybe you remember this, but when we were on the DAC, he said that he went out and did an inventory of the fire roads with somebody else and did submit that data to the city.
Okay.
So I think that, some of that has been accomplished. We could check to see if the city has it.
My memory is, in the later terms of the DAC, was that there were of the issues that was remaining was that, and I don't know whether those would be classified as fire roads per se, but there were places where it was clear that brush trails needed to be cleared because A, fire folks couldn't access them in their present state, and B, that there were issues of people getting lost, and again, rescue vehicles being unable to get to them. So there seems to me to be a priority category that has not been, taken care of. But again,
So actually, that was a study that was out of the water department. Larry Durkin was the point person on the grant for that study, and we hired Kleinfelder to do a survey. I think it was watershed lands, all watershed lands. I don't necessarily know if it covered all of Dogtown because it was in the scope of the water department and it had specifically to do with fire access for the infrastructure there. But there is definitely a lot of overlap in the discussion. I have that study. I do have the findings, the report from that. I can try to scan that up and put that up there if you want to look at it. I'm pretty sure it's a full Gloucester scope and it's watershed lands, but I also think that the priority for Dogtown comes through. So that's a nice document to have on hand.
But that there's a study exists, that's great, but has there been any action taken on the basis of the study? In terms of if there are issues where the clearing needs to happen, is that just a recommendation at this point? Or?
There were recommendations of the study, and if I recall correctly, Kleinfelder, came back and said these are places where you can be doing this work. However, please be advised, if you're clearing for a fire break, it's like 128 is a fire break.
Right.
That's what a fire break is. It's a three-lane highway, a true fire break, right?
True fire break, yeah.
So we're probably not promoting installing fire breaks through Dogtown,
Or
right?
any necessarily. My sense was it was access, and that you couldn't get an emergency vehicle, and that didn't require 128. So
right, but so access was in there, and then there was also a whole piece about flooding and spillways. I don't remember all the details of it, but I do remember what came out. There were recommendations that came out of it. To my knowledge, there has not been any action taken.
good to know.
Yeah, I was at the presentation that they made, Adrian, and I think you're correct. It was predominantly drinking water supply. It was, I think Betsy Frederick was leading that.
Right. Yes, that's right.
So that's my old firm. So if we need if there's information from that study that seems to be missing, if they have it, I can reach out to them.
I definitely have a hard copy right here on my bookcase, but I would have to dig into my email for the digital.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
All right, let me try to find that.
Yeah, I'll follow up.
It's something.
I'll follow up with Nick too and see, when he sent it over, because his email to me seemed to indicate that they mapped all the roads and characterized their condition using a high quality professional Trimble GPS. We provided this data to the city in a format compatible with their GIS system.
I'm not sure I was aware of that. I mean, Nick's obviously somebody we would want to involve.
Yeah,
in this
Nick is
consortium.
Exactly.
Like Holland, yeah.
So that would be a really good short-term goal, is let's find out if that, where that is and what needs to happen there.
Yes, yeah, you're right. That would be a good one.
And I'm happy to follow up with both Nick and the city to see where it went. Leslie, was that you?
What is Nick's last name?
Holland.
Oh, and this was before my time, I think, but I think I know what you're saying.
I'm not sure he's still head of the trail stewards or whether
he's definitely on the trail stewards.
he's involved. So yeah.
And he was on the DAC.
Right.
So.
Okay. I have only met him once, I think.
Yeah.
But I recall that.
Cindy?
Yes.
May I ask something? So I want to thank you for wrestling through all of the input to come up with this formulation of priorities. And I think it makes a lot of sense. In this category, I wonder if there is a value in separating out the stewardship aspects from collaboration. And I just put that to the committee. There, to, kind of to the point about Nick Holland and so many others, there's a tremendous amount of expertise and involvement, community interest around Dogtown. I wonder if there are ways for us to be actively collaborating as a way of information gathering and staying current with usage of Dogtown. And I wonder whether the stewardship needs, especially around ecology, fire safety, water quality, and so on, may deserve a separate category or a separate priority.
I think that there's probably several items that, deserve a separate category, and we certainly can look at that. I grouped them together because they, so we didn't have 5 priorities. There are a lot of people doing things in Dogtown. Everybody talks about collaboration. It's really hard to collaborate at the end of the day because everybody's so busy and everybody's doing their own. We're doing our Dogtown preservation, Cats is doing their stuff, but you're right, it's absolutely essential. We could reach out to them, try to encourage them, to come to our meetings and stuff. As far as stewardship, I think stewardship does have some opportunities for some short-term goals. The trails, a lot of groups are doing trail work. My pet peeve is the access points to Dogtown. I think when they look bad, people arrive at it, and especially people that aren't familiar with it and initially think that Dogtown is not taken care of. So that's one of my stewardship things, is just to try to keep the access points looking good, looking clean, looking, the kiosks stocked and things. So it's a lot, those 2 topics are very broad.
But I think they can be split out, as you say. And
Right.
I mean, one of my main hobby horses is just management of some of these fens that have rare species in them. And they
Right,
just need,
that's another
so,
thing.
and
That's a
that's
whole
something that
topic.
can be accomplished, that's not.
Absolutely.
So there are a bunch of things like that. Maybe wrongly, Cindy, but the connection I made with collaboration was, well, you set out your stewardship goals, and that's kind of a beginning of the process or whatever. And then you seek collaboration, partially, at least for fundraising, because if we have these set goals, but we know that we're going to need someone, we can't just, at the very least, it has to be a volunteer coordinator. But, again, that's a spacey number unless there's a paid position.
Mhm.
And so I'm thinking what I thought you might be thinking was, okay, you set your stewardship goals, you present these to people like Nick and the trail stewards and say, now what we need here, folks, right, is a paid position to go out there and do some of this stewardship work. So that was my take on the collaboration, not gathering everybody in right now and say, well, what do you think? Because we've got plenty of what do you think out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. We certainly could separate them out for the next meeting, and try to, maybe you guys can email me, maybe do a little more detail for each one for me.
Sure.
But remember, just email me,
Right, yes.
not each other.
Got it.
So, and we can maybe flush that one out a little bit more, because you're right, it probably could use a little bit more detail. How would we collaborate? How would we steward? What stewardship projects would we like help with?
Will
So
do.
we're getting sort of late on time. I didn't want the meeting to go too much later, but the elephant in the room is the compost pile. And I really want to dedicate some time to talk about that and get kind of your feelings on that. I gave you a memo. Mark Collado, myself, and Val Gilman met with the mayor in May of 2019 and sort of just presented a proposal to kind of phase or slow the operation of the compost pile. But, you know, we didn't get much feedback on that. Granted, you know, 6-7 months later, we were in a COVID pandemic. So, but I don't know what you know, we've got some new members. I don't know what your thoughts were on the memo. I don't know if you want to think about it further, if you have your own ideas. But I'll take some comments and then see what you guys are thinking.
I'm forever learning more about the compost.
Lucky you.
That's all I'm gonna say for now. I do have to tell you, I have to get in the car. I gotta go pick up my kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna stay on because I think so Cindy, what I'm gonna do is make you the host.
Okay.
You're co-hosting now, but I'm going to make you the host and I'm going to stay on and listen. But I just want to make sure it doesn't get disconnected when I go over to my Bluetooth or my hotspot. So I will be listening in and participating when I can and trying to hold the space here for everybody to continue on. But I got to go get them from the babysitter.
Okay.
We need you
totally
on
understand.
for quorum, for purposes of quorum. We can't lose anybody, right?
And I have to leave. I'm terribly
So why
sorry.
don't we do this? Why don't we, you know, for our next meeting, you know, read the memo.
Put
I
this at
have
the
some
top of the
more,
list.
I have some information I can PDF and put it in the Google Drive, how this memo came about. I have some information on the self-help grants, different things like that. So why don't we do that? Why don't we gather some more information so we can we'll start off with this priority next time. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Great.
moved.
Really great.
All right.
We can
I
start
don't
earlier
think-
too.
I
Okay.
don't see that we have any members of the public here to comment.
We do.
We
So
do?
if you want to do a quick public comment, there are some attendees. I
Yeah.
see there attendee membership, and you're welcome to raise your hand or dial *9 if you want to offer some public comment to this evening's agenda. I'll give you about 30 seconds. Wow. Hopefully here we go. Mark Collado and Jeff Brown both have your hands up. So Mark, you can go first. Let me see if I can. Hold on. Why is that working?
Oh, is it because you made me the host?
You have to do it now, Cindy. I made you a host. I can't do it. You go over to your attendees. If you go down the bottom, you'll see participants.
Okay.
And then you go to attendees.
All I see is participants. Wait a
Click on
minute.
that. It'll open up a little box.
Okay.
There's a
Oh, I
little
see. I
tab.
see it.
You go over to attendees, and when you hover over Mark, it will say,
Okay.
ask.
Got it.
Maybe, I'm not sure.
There he is. The masked man.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hi, Mark.
I just want to express my thanks for holding this on Zoom. It's also nice to see some of you. I haven't seen you in so long. And I hope others will join in the future. This is a great tool. Thanks. Thanks very much.
You're welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Mark, for all you've
Thank
done.
you.
Yeah.
And there's Jeff.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
I can hear you.
Yep. Very simple question today. I just wanted to know how many members of the public are in attendance today, in addition to me, myself.
I believe 4.
You're
Okay.
for including you.
Okay. Thank you. It's always very helpful to know. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Sib and Judy Wright.
Yeah, I was just curious in your reference to the memo that you're going to be talking about. Is that the one that I prepared several years ago, or is there a new one pertaining to the compost? I did about it was probably 8-page memo that Cindy distributed to the folks on the DAC, and I want to make sure that that's part of what you folks are considering.
The memo that we sent over to the mayor and met with the mayor on was something that was done by the DAC. after you.
I hope,
We can put that memo, you know, on our Dropbox on the webpage. It took some of your ideas, but it was more of a phase out strategy. But certainly all the historical information that you've provided over the years, Sib, is the basis for a lot of why we
okay.
have the commission.
So should I be forwarding you a copy of the original memo for the consideration of your group? Does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. And I'm glad to see you guys have been functioning the way you have. I always championed the idea of an official city body running Dogtown. And I always felt that the DAC was on the sidelines and not respected very much. So great. I'm glad to see you moving forward. One last point. I think I read in maybe your meetings agenda that the DAC money was going to be turned over to some city department of public space or whatever it's called.
No, it would be us. No, it would be us. It's going from the DAC, the Dogtown Advisory Committee, to the Dogtown Preservation Commission.
Oh, good. Okay. That's great. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say.
It's good to hear your voice. I can't see you, but it's good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think that's everyone.
Are we
That
done?
looks like it. All right. So
Move to
what a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ooh,
All right.
Second.
Second. We'll go by roll call. Richard,
yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Adrian, Cindy. Yes. All right. We're adjourned.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye, all.
Thank you all. Great to see you all.
Take care. Bye-bye.